Discuss this with Republican Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio. He's the ranking Republican on the House Intelligence Committee. So, Congressman, you've been briefed by U.S. intelligence officials. Obviously, you're only going to share with us what you're allowed to share. But what are you hearing about Putin's mental and emotional state?
Well, certainly it's of great concern because it affects how everyone tries to evaluate what is occurring. But I think in this instance, adversaries self-select, and Putin has identified himself as an adversary to the West, adversary to the United States. And as you said, a murderous thug. We're seeing that as he's killing civilians, women and children in Ukraine. What I think, though, is that he is absolutely stating that he wants to reconstitute the geographical area of the Soviet Union. We need to believe him. And so in that, we need to understand that all of the things that we're looking to try to deter him, to try to arm NATO allies, to arm the Ukrainians, has to be with the context of this is going to be a much broader war. Putin, it needs to be stopped, or he's just going to continue.
What do you tell Americans who are watching right now and are concerned? We're seeing this individual described as erratic, isolated, unpredictable, and knowing that he has access to the second biggest stockpile in the world of nuclear weapons, and he's put them on high alert. What do you say to your constituents?
Well, he didn't really put them on high alert. He said he put them on an alert status. It was kind of undefined, really, as to what that was. Certainly, we're watching from the intelligence side what movements, what's happening with respect to them. We also have a nuclear deterrent. But I think the big focus has to be not on the statements that he's making that are bravada and trying to puff himself up, or how do we make certain that our allies are safe? How do we support the Ukrainian people? We need to get weapons in there. We need to assist them. President Zelensky is absolutely right. This is a fight about democracy. This is about the future. This is about the future of the West and Europe and the United States. And we need to make certain that we rise to this occasion.
A fellow Republican who's on the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska, was on the show earlier. He says that White House lawyers, I imagine National Security Council lawyers, are slowing down the process of sharing with the Ukrainians real-time actionable intelligence. Is that accurate? And if so, what should be done about it?
So members of Congress are receiving a lot of different communications from people on the ground in Ukraine, and they're hearing the same thing as have I. I think we need to make certain that we give them actionable intelligence immediately. We need to get weapons in there. I mean, this administration should have got weapons in there last year. It should have been built up so that, when Russia began this war, Ukraine had the ability to defend themselves even more strongly than they have. But as you've seen the miles and miles of weapons that Putin intends to move into Ukraine to kill civilians, women and children, we need to make certain that we give them weapons to respond and defend themselves.
What do you think about people who are calling for a no-fly zone, which obviously would require either NATO pilots or U.S. pilots, Air Force or Navy, to risk their lives, come in contact with Russian fighter jets? I mean, is that something that you're willing to do?
Right. I don't think there's anyone who wants to escalate to the point where there are U.S. and Russia troops that are fighting against each other. But I do think certainly that the Ukrainians have shown both the will and the ability to fight for themselves, and we need to give them the weapons to do so.
What weapons specifically?
Well, as you've seen, right, certainly, surface to air, missiles, as even, President Zelensky said, give me ammunition. They're going to run out of ammunition. We need to get both weapons, ammunition, missiles, stingers. All of this needs to be at their disposal so they can defend their country and, as they say, defend democracy.
Do you think there's actually any sort of off-ramp for Putin, or is he just going to do this ultimately until Ukraine falls, killing who knows how many innocent Ukrainians while doing it, and then installs a puppet government after either capturing or killing Zelensky?
Yeah, I don't think there's an off-ramp for him. I think there's a retreat. As we've seen so far, he has an invasion force. He doesn't really have a occupying force. And as we've seen in the will of the Ukrainians, they're going to continue to fight. Once these people get out of their armored vehicles and tanks, they're going to be met by Ukrainians who have weapons and hopefully ammunition that Europe and the United States are going to help them to have at their disposal. And they can continue to defend their country even if they have lost ground. That's the point at which Putin's really going to have a very difficult time, because he's not going to be able to hold Ukraine even if he takes territory.
So ultimately, you see this ending for Putin the way that it ended for the Soviets in Afghanistan. It's just 10 years of a bloody, low-grade insurrection, rebellion, and ultimately they just decide it's not worth it?
He and the Russian people are going to have a very difficult decision to make because this is not going to be over. This is not, I mean, you saw President Zelensky saying, you know, these are our homes. We're going to fight for this country. I believe them. I also believe that Putin wants to expand this war even outside Ukraine, but he can't do that until he gets finished with Ukraine. And I don't think Ukraine's going to let him be finished.
You're going to be going to President Biden's first State of the Union this evening. Is there anything in particular you're hoping to hear from him?
Right. I've been talking to Democrats and Republicans, and I can tell you that there's bipartisan agreement that the president needs to talk about increasing domestic energy production, ending Russia exports of oil coming to the United States, arming the Ukrainians, and making certain that we arm our NATO allies so that we can have a forward position to assist against any advance by Putin.
All right. Congressman Mike Turner, the ranking Republican on the House Intelligence Committee. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.